and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. My name is Omar Pinto, the host of the Shair Podcast and a founding member of the SRC, the Shair Recovery Community. In the SRC, we have a number of live online recovery meetings every week on a number of different topics. This podcast is only one example of the content provided to our members. In this meeting, a chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Hey guys, Buddy C. This is the February 13th, 2020 Tao Te Ching meeting for the Shair Recovery Community. Happy early Valentine's Day to you ladies. Hope y'all have a great day tomorrow.
And to you too.
I couldn't wish the men a happy Valentine's, Marla. That's not possible for me to do.
Sorry. But
I can the women. I can do that for sure.
You know? Hey, you could wish us a happy Friday, buddy.
Happy Friday tomorrow, Paul. Happy early Friday, okay?
Especially for us single ones out there.
Well, I can wish the men a happy Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, sweetie. I'd like to welcome Marla and Kate and Tina, Paul and Rob and Jan. The 70th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Let's go ahead and get Kate to read, then we'll start our discussion. How is that? Kate, you are in charge.
All right. First translation. My words are easy to understand and easy to perform, yet no man under heaven knows them or practices them. My words have ancient beginnings. My actions are disciplined. Because men do not understand, they have no knowledge of me. Those that know me are few. Those that abuse me are honored. Therefore the sage wears rough clothing and holds the jewel in his heart. Second translation. My teachings are easy to understand and easy to put in practice. Yet your intellect will never grasp them, and if you try to practice them, you'll fail. My teachings are older than the world. How can you grasp their meaning? If you want to know me, look inside your heart. Third translation. My words are easy to understand and easier to put in practice. Yet no one in the world seems to understand them or be able to apply what I teach. My teachings come from the ancients. The things I do are done for a reason. Because you do not know me, you are not able to understand my teachings. Because those who know me are few, my teachings become even more precious. Final translation. Lao Tzu's advice was easy to understand and easy to follow, but nobody understood him or did what he suggested. His words stemmed from ancient wisdom, and his actions were highly disciplined. People didn't get that, which is why they didn't understand him. And the less they understood him, the more meaningful his advice became. That's why the masters live simply, hiding their wisdom deep within themselves.
My words are easy to understand and easy to perform. Yet, your intellect will never grasp them. And if you try to practice them, you'll fail. What could that mean?
I'm guessing it means about intellectualizing them, intellectualizing his words rather than feeling what's really in the soul and in the heart to do, to be a good soul, or what's truly in your soul.
I was thinking about the simplicity of recovery. Okay, I was thinking about how my recovery came from surrender, not understanding, not all this knowledge. And really, when you look at it, the way it's described in recovery is it's simple but not easy. It's like digging a ditch. It's a simple thing to do, but it takes effort. It takes work. And I'm kind of thinking of this in some of the same way, in that it's not about the knowledge. It's really more about just the surrender for me. And somehow that relates to this, I think.
I'm in agreement with you there.
There's a quote.
About unlearning.
Yeah, it's about unlearning. This is good morning, Craig. Hey, Craig, put this book on your list, The History of Chinese Philosophy, by, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, Feng Yu Lan.
Beg your
I'm not
pardon?
going to transcribe that.
That reminds me of that infection I had that one time.
Come on. All right.
Is it on your toenail?
It sounds like some light reading.
Well, this is one of the books I want us to put on our list of books to read. Okay. When we get done with what we're on, what I do with sponsees, we read material. We keep reading things. And this is a book I want Craig and I to read, I think. I'm in it 20, 30 pages, and it looks pretty good. It's a 100 and some odd page book. It was wrote in the 30s, but this guy, I want to use a quote today that I think is applicable. He says, the study of philosophy is not simply an attempt to acquire knowledge, but is also an attempt to develop character. Philosophy is not simply something to be known. It's about Chinese philosophy. Not simply something to be known, but it's something to be experienced. It is not simply some sort of intellectual game, but something far more serious. And the belief system changed for me when I came into recovery. I had to move from this system of being taught what I was supposed to believe, then believing it out of fear mostly, because I didn't want to go to hell, okay? From that to, I see this working. I see experience. So I have an experience-based belief rather than a taught knowledge-based belief. Like we're taught, we act our way into right thinking, right? We don't believe something and God change us and then we act different. We start acting, then we're changed. We understand that now, and that's how we approach these things. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I was brought up Jewish, and my parents forced me to go to Hebrew school and learn what they learned, and it never quite felt right. I think a lot of what this is talking about is doing what feels right, is leaning into what feels right.
Leaning into what works.
What works, but what works for you, because it's got to feel right for you. And that's what you're talking about, experiencing philosophy rather than just learning it.
And that's why this appeals to me so much, is because every time I turn around, when somebody's describing Taoist thought, it matches so well with what we learn in recovery. Jan, you have something?
Yeah, buddy, maybe it's also not so much just being knowledge and something that's on an intellectual level, but something that you follow and that you practically apply, so to speak. So instead of just, as I think as Marla mentioned, just intellectualizing it and mixing it around in your head, it's a simple pathway that can be followed, and it's not some airy-fairy, it's not some Jungian or Nietzsche, kind of really nihilistic thought process, but it's something very practicable, not necessarily easy, but something to live and experience as opposed to just parroting or.
Because, when I first heard that I act my way into right thinking, I thought, that's bullshit. That can't be right. God has to change me first, and then I can love people. That kind of a thing, right? But then I started looking at it, and I looked at, let's say, the Lord's Prayer. It says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That we do the forgiving first. I'm like, that is what it says. It says I act my way into right thinking right there. I didn't have to go far to find it, And I still, even though I'm more open-minded now, when I have a new thought, I always go to the New Testament to see if it lines up with what I see there. I always do that still. And I always find it. And if I look, I've not found anything in what I've ever found in recovery that I could not find there as well. And I'm sure in other spiritual principles or spiritual practices too. Anything else at this point, guys? Your intellect will never grasp, and if you try to practice them, you'll fail. I think that's talking about practicing in our own intellect. Similar to, if I tell you that if you have a problem with alcohol, what worked for me was helping someone else, you would say, there's no way why would that help me? There's no way that would help me. Or if I have a resentment against someone, I pray for them. I pray for them to have the things that I want. Intellectually, that makes no sense at all. Absolutely zero sense. So I think that's the same idea, is that this is not an intellectual undertaking, same thing. Stephen Mitchell, he says that easy to put into practice. Grasses and trees have no trouble with it. Animals are perfect disciples. Look inside your heart and keep looking. Keep listening to until the sights and the sounds disappear by themselves. That idea here at the end of this one is that if you want to know me, you look inside your heart. That the answer's within us, right? The kingdom of God's within. We already have all the solutions. We just keep trying to intellectually understand those instead of just doing the action. Y'all interrupt me when you have something. Let me read you my translation out of the Jonathan Starr. My teachings are very easy to understand and very easy to put into practice. In the world, no one has the ability to understand. No one has the ability to put my words into practice. They come from an ancient beginning. Affairs of men have a system. Truly, it's because the people are ignorant. Therefore, they do not understand my ways. Those who understand my teachings are few. Initiate my ways, and you will reach your inner treasure. Therefore, the sage looks within and plainly sees what is precious. Plainly sees what is precious. Craig?
Yes, it's interesting that he's saying that he looks within and plainly sees what's precious. I spent far too long looking outwards to see what was precious. I put far too much concentration on materialism rather than what was actually going on within my life. I think for far too long I was actually blind to everything that was right in front of me. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. So I just had to stop and look at the trees for a little while. And they're actually quite good looking trees. But yeah, I like this verse. It's nice and simple. We have to unlearn a lot of things that we think we know. stop looking for things that we want to see. We should look for things that are actually there and appreciate and be grateful for things that are actually there. And it talks about a treasure of the Tao, or it talks about a jade.
Shane Raymer's here.
No way. It talks about a treasure. One of the translations talks about the treasure. Maybe the Tao's the treasure. The Tao itself's a treasure. Or just a right way of living, not a righteous way of living, that's something completely different, but just living a right style of life.
Mm-hmm.
Could just be that treasure. You may have already said this before I came in.
No,
that's fine. So
no, you came up with a great new idea, brand new idea, genius.
Again,
oh, don't do that, Marla. Come on. It's actually the three okay. Hey, Craig, what are the three treasures we've been discussing time and time again in here?
The three treasures.
Yeah, what are those three treasures? That's what they're talking about.
The three treasures. No, I do know. There's 1, 2, 3.
Who can help Craig out?
Humility, one of them.
No, don't help me. We've got another half hour. Just give me a wee second. I'll type them in the chat as soon as I remember them. Maybe Shane knows.
The ability to love.
I knew love was one of them.
The ability to give.
To give, yep.
And the ability to be grateful.
That's the one. Excellent, well done.
Yeah, those three.
I mean, those were on the tip of your tongue, Craig.
Yeah, they were there. It's okay.
They were in you.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
There's just too much Craig for him to hear it, you know.
All up in his head, intellectualizing it. You know what I was thinking about though? In this one, they were talking about how the sage wears ragged or plain clothing, and how I back in the day I used to seek out designer clothing, and I had a closet full of it was all used, but. And the older I've gotten and the wiser is that shit it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What you look like on the outside or what you're wearing or how much you accumulate, it doesn't matter. And not to let it take a huge role in your life.
Because it's not about those things, Marla.
No, it's not anything about those things.
It's about learning how to be useful. Not how to be how to be a part of, not separate from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the more spiritual, for lack of a better term, but the more we become like this, the more useful we'll be, the more we'll blend in, not the more we'll be unique. The more we'll be helpful, the more we'll be unassuming. All of those things. Craig?
Yeah, my wife kind of, she's got a slightly different opinion on that. When I was drinking, it was just a case of, I had 2 sets of clothes. I had my work clothes that I would go out to work with. I'd come home and I'd stick on just like anything. It was just like a pair of jeans and a scabby T-shirt because I just really didn't give a monkey's what I looked like. I just was not into taking care of myself. Embarrassingly, she used to have to tell me, go and have a shower. She's like, go and get a shower. Go and get yourself a wash, get a haircut. But nowadays, I think it's kind of different because I kind of care about what I look like now. I take a bit of pride in my appearance, but not to the extent where I'm going to go and blow all my fortunes on an Armani suit or a Versace suit. I'll go out occasionally, but I'll buy a nice T-shirt, buy a nice pair of jeans that don't hang off my. Don't make me look like some gangster rapper. Nothing against gangster rappers. If that's gangster rappers, that's I'm more of a pop guy. But yeah, I kind of like to take a bit of pride in my appearance now. But at the same time, I do it for the reason that I don't want people to try and stray away from me and think, look at the state I am.
It's about. I'm going to bring in yoga again. Cleansing. It's we do yoga with a clean body. People, you're supposed to be clean when you do a practice. Most people don't, but it's that taking pride in if you're clean, you're white, you're open, you're empty, so that you can embrace everything you're supposed to be learning. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Marla. This is the actual Jonathan Starr translation. This is how he translated it. My teachings are very easy to understand and very easy to practice, yet so few in this world understand, and so few are able to practice. My words arise from that ancient source. My actions are those of the universe itself. If people do not know these, how can they know me? Those who follow my ways are rare, and so I treasure them. Even if they wear the clothes of a beggar, they carry a priceless gem within. Yeah. How would, our issue is, for me, is trying to intellectualize this path, right? Trying to understand and comprehend and work the path instead of allowing the path to work me, right? So this whole idea, I had a sponsee one time that I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm just trying not to try." And he'd been looking at all this Tao stuff. I thought, that's pretty good. He's not sober now, but that was a good, he had a good point, and it was really a good, and I've kept that, I've kept that idea of trying not to try, of learning how to surrender our effort and learn how to be powerless in a situation rather than the push that we like to do that gets us in trouble. I see heads nodding, so I know I'm not the only one that pushes.
No, don't we try? I mean, for me, in the last few years before I got into serious recovery, I was trying so hard. Why can't I do this? Why can't I find God? Why? Which was more painful than not being sober. Why? The questions.
That's the real danger of thinking we know. Because that's where the danger is. The danger is in thinking I know the answer. Because once we're convinced we have the answer, we're not open to any suggestions of any kind. Yeah, I like to have a beginner's mind no matter what I'm doing. And this is a great thing for me about sobriety, is that in any problem or issue I have in life, if I go into whatever this is not knowing really what the outcome's going to be, but trying to be of help in the situation, not manipulate it for a particular outcome, if I do that, then I'm open to whatever comes my way. So that's really a different mindset about everything. Craig?
It's like reneging on the first step. So the first step we'd met with powerless over alcohol and our lives would become unmanageable. That's kind of like saying, I've got power now and I've got control of my life. I'm no longer at that unmanageability stage.
God, you show me twice, I'll take it from there, right?
Yeah. And that's when we kind of go downhill. That's when we stop working the rest of the program. That's when we stop working the rest of the steps.
Always reminds me, Craig, of of Paul's thorn in the flesh, which the essence of that was he found out from that the weaker he got, the stronger he became. So it's never a situation where we're going to get so weak and then we're going to be strong and we're going to take over and start doing it ourselves. Truly, the best I can ever do is be weaker, is be more powerless and more surrendered. Paul?
Yeah, that thorn really did hurt, by the way. I just wanted to say that we've had some relapses in our online group last month or so, and I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on this. I always cringe a little bit when some people will come in and say, "Oh yeah, recovery's hard," and I think to myself, in my case, the opposite was true. what was hard for me was my addiction. It was hard to keep up with that when I look back on it. The recovery has been easy for me. And maybe that's just the way I approach it. I don't know. But I always just kind of cringe when people will come in and say, oh, I mean, they're trying to be helpful by telling the person who relapsed that, yes, it is, recovery is a hard thing. And I just always kind of cringe at that because, I don't know. I don't know what if you guys have that same experience or not.
Marla?
Honestly, I don't cringe when that. I think recovery, transformation is hard. And isn't that kind of what recovery is about, is transforming ourselves into something that we weren't before. And for most of us, it doesn't come easy because we don't want to change. So we have to take on this huge task of transforming everything about ourselves. So for me, it's been not arduous, but not entirely. And most of it's been pleasant, but not entirely. Not entirely. It's not. I would love to be able to be a normal drinker, but I think it's hard. Yeah.
It's hard if Marla wants to stay in charge.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So a resistance to change. I understand.
Exactly.
That part's hard, but
you were just beat up, Paul. You were ready.
Oh, I just threw my hands up and said, "That's it. I can't take it anymore."
That's the difference. See, it took me 6 years after I came in to be at that point. It took 6 more years of trying as best as I knew, praying more sincerely than I even pray now. I mean, as sincere as I could be, no one could have prayed a more sincere prayer than me to stop drinking. But yet I could not stop because I was missing the real solution. The solution wasn't, God help me do this. The solution was, I give up. I can't do this. Then the help came.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the same place. I just hadn't even looked into the recovery part of it at all. My ego was so out of control that I thought I had all the answers. I'm not even going to try to listen to anybody. I'm not even going to try to, I'm not going to do 6 years of in and out of AA. I know better than all that. And then finally it just caught up with me. So, but.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Craig?
I think I heard it best described as not drinking's easy. It's living sober that's the hard part. I stumbled along for 14 months doing my own thing, and I was doing good until I got to the stage where I couldn't do it anymore. I was back to struggling. I had to find the help that I was needing. It had to get away from being Craig's way of doing things. I had to get a sponsor. I was working with people. I was working with accountability people, trying to keep them on the straight and narrow. But I just needed somebody to cut through my own bullshit and say, look, this is where we can go. I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm not saying everybody needs a sponsor. Not everybody needs that level of accountability. But my problem was control. My problem was trying to control the outcomes, trying to control what I was doing. And Craig just trying to do what Craig wants to do. And the last time Craig done that, he ended up drunk. And Marla, I think I'm a normal drinker. My normal drinking is waking up on the kitchen floor thinking, how did I get down here and who threw my last beer all over me? That's my idea of normal drinking. That's me at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's about perception, and I think it's about how much you want to put into things as well. I know at the moment I'm putting probably more effort into recovery and helping others than I was when I was drinking. I'm putting more effort into what I'm doing now than the effort I was putting into drinking. Drinking was simple. All I had to do was go and buy a case of beer and drink it. That was it. I didn't have any consequences to worry about. Now, I don't have any consequences to worry about either because I know I'm putting the work into it as well. Again, I know not everybody's as needy as I am. I know nobody follows the same program not everybody follows the same program that I follow. And that's entirely up to them. There's many rules in recovery. But I think it's just a case of what you're willing to put in as well. You're going to get out what you put in.
Thanks, Craig. Tina?
Good morning, guys. This is one thing that I do love about recovery is that everybody comes to it in a different place, in a different spot, in a different mindset. And it is kind of hard sometimes to understand why other people say the things they say or where they're at, and that's why they say to look for the similarities and not the differences. And I have to remind myself that all the time. But the one thing that I liked about this reading is I took it as the way, and just in general. Like, this is practicing our principles in all our affairs, walking the way, trying to be sage-like. We may not ever fully understand. Some few may. But we all have the same goal, is to get sober. And sometimes I just have to keep it that simple, is that we're all here to try to stay sober emotionally, physically, whatever way. And how we get there is progress, not perfection. And how we get there is all different. And for me, recovery was hard. My brain had a definite worn out path in it. That was my go-to. I could drive that road with my eyes closed. And it was really hard to go a different way. But that was my first 4 years. Since my relapse, somehow this second leg here has been completely different. It's like I white-knuckled it for 4 years, I felt like. I went back out, and now I could say recovery is easy. I could make, or at least it's not as fighting the resistance as much as I was before. Now it's going. So I see where I saw a Facebook profile picture of me from like 7 years ago, and it's from that Kesha song. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth with a bottle of Jack, and I'm pretending to brush my teeth with the whiskey, and I'm thinking, and I was in Vegas, why did I have a big bottle of alcohol in the room in Vegas? I'm thinking, but that's my mindset now. But back then, I'm like, oh, of course, you have to drink before you go drink. But I'd already kind of forgotten, or at least removed myself from that way of thinking, to where I'm like, what was I doing? But it just goes to show how we all have a different mindset at different stages of our recovery, where we come in, and but it's all about what the Tao is saying today about that ultimate end goal, and that doesn't overcomplicate things. I like what Ram Dass says, that we're all here just walking each other home. I like it when I can keep it simple.
Thanks, Tina. That reminded me that if the teachings of the Tao are easy to understand, that must mean there's not much to learn. Okay? So this is really more about walking out our experience and learning from the experience of others. So when we're talking about recovery and helping someone, Craig reminded me of this. What do we share? Do we share knowledge or all the things we've learned? No. We share how we're doing it, right? We've talked about that over and over again. We just talk about how we're doing it. And if we talk about our experience, someone gets something out of it or they don't, that's up to them. Not really up to us. We're not responsible for their sobriety. We just share how we're doing it. That's all. That's staying with experience. And if we can stay with that experience on that level, then it is easy. Rob?
So let me see if I can put this together this early. I've only got a half a cup of coffee in me. So is living in recovery easy? Me at 8 months into this, I'm going to say no. But if I practice the easy solutions when I'm in the trouble, the outcome is easier. So if I'm in a situation where I've got this idea that I'm going to keep my job the way it is that I've been doing for 25 years, and they hand me a piece of paper and say, I'm now going to go down a different path. I'm going to become an accountant. I work for the government. They do this kind of stuff. Before, I would have gone off the handle. I would have gone flush. I would have gone I've got plans. I'm certified in this, that, and this, and I would have gone vein right here. Would have started popping, and I would have tried to get out of that situation without destroying my career and saying what I was thinking, and then go hit the bar and complain with everybody at happy hour about how stupid these people are. But this time around, when this happened to me last Thursday, I walked in there. I had meditated before I walked in the room. And when the paper came across, I had no idea this was coming. I'm thinking, well, my thoughts are tricky. And my thoughts lie to me. They've been lying to me my whole life. So when I saw it, I stood there and I said, Rob, what's going on? What are you thinking? And I'm thinking, I'm not going to think through this. Now, the answer was simple, but I had to do a lot of work because, I started feeling the trigger, and then I was like, no. This could be the best job I've ever had. This is kind of funny because life's happening despite all of my hard attempts to otherwise plan it. So, and I've got a job, and I've got a good job, and I've got longevity. I'm in a different division. So the result was easy because I didn't go down this path of anger and saying what I thought in front of some very highly powerful people, and then go drink myself and risk all that mess that comes with that. The result was easy. But what I had to do to get to that point and to get to this point in 8 months has been hard for me because I'm having to change every bit of all of my knee jerk, everything I've thought about and everything that I've known to this point. I've had to flip it on its head. That's what I got.
Thanks, Rob. And with that, every one of those solutions came from within, and all of those solutions were a change in you, not in someone else.
and can I say something to that?
Sure. Yeah, please, Paul. Please.
And by doing all that, Rob, you'll find that will get easier for you as you go along. I remember my first year of recovery, and yeah, I'm not going to say it was all, rainbows and unicorns, because it wasn't. It was, I had to make some changes, and change, like Marla said before, change is always difficult, especially when you're so used to doing things your way for all those years. So, things will get easier. Things will get better. Yeah, life is always going to throw us some curveballs, but it's how we choose to deal with those problems. Whereas before, speaking from my experience, I would run and hide. I would go to my go-to alcohol. That I could always soothe myself with that. And then that worked for a long time. That worked for a lot of years until it didn't work anymore. And that's when I had to surrender. And yes, change is always difficult, but the things you're doing now, Rob, you can build on that. And you'll find that, you're building a foundation is what you're doing. And you'll be able to deal with things better in the future. So it will get better.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks. Any other comments before we go to Wayne Dyer?
Yeah, I just maybe want to say I think Rob is a perfect example of, I guess, in my view, surrendering in the situation and not trying to. You realize you couldn't control it. It didn't go necessarily the way you wanted it, so you kind of surrendered and said, "Look, I'm going to flow with it, and I'm going to take it, and it's going to take me into a different path. I'm going to learn something new." I think it's awesome. It's an awesome story. I love it. And, I can understand that, if you were still drinking, the levels of anxiety that kind of situation can bring about. So, yeah, I think you've done well. So, yeah, keep at it, man. Keep at it.
Thanks. I think the hardest thing for me is to give myself a little bit of slack, because I've come at things my whole life planning so hard, and it seems like the harder I work, it's like one of those Chinese finger toy trap things. Your fingers in, and you try to pull them out, and it pulls. You can't. It's weird. All this stuff in the Tao, it's kind of the whole take everything I know and flip it on its head and do the opposite, and that's probably the right answer. And standing back and watching it and realizing what I would have done a year ago, I was telling my sponsor a year ago, this would have been a dumpster fire and possibly the end for me. This might have been a new bottom, because this was a huge one. But I'm walking around standing sober, and again, I'm not beating my drum. I don't got this, but it's given me some confidence I didn't know I had either. So, thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. This truly is learning to practice this in all of our affairs, because that's what it's about. And this is an ongoing, Rob, we're going to have to surrender this stuff. If we want this kind of peace and joy, we're going to have to surrender all of life as life goes on in front of us, which is new things and new stuff happening. We don't stop this process. It's ongoing. Craig?
Yeah, I was just going to say the exact same. The surrender and accepting that we're powerless. There's one thing to surrender to something, but it's another thing to actually accept that we can't do something about it. Because sometimes I think, do you know what? Yeah, okay, maybe we'll surrender to it, but what if I still tinker about it? What if I still meddle in it? Maybe I can turn it around to the way that I want things to work out. One of the hardest things I had to deal with was actually asking for help and taking the help I was given, taking the help that I was offered. As well, that was incredibly difficult for somebody that's just so prideful and stubborn.
Thanks, Craig.
One of the things about the process that we're kind of talking about that I have had to deal with, I'm looking at the part that says my teachings are older than the world. And it makes me think about kind of early in my recovery, the things that were difficult for me were just not using. And I had to kind of adjust from my lifestyle of being, I was around a bunch of drug addicts. I was around a bunch of drug dealers. I was kind of entrenched in that lifestyle. And I had to move away. I had to adjust to living a totally different way. And that was a new way of living. And I was constantly craving the drugs, and I had to fight against that for like the first year probably. But once that kind of wore off and I was adjusted to the new lifestyle, like the new things that were distracting me in the world were like things like pride and ego that kind of came into my life. Like now I'm more distracted by like thoughts that I have, like I need to look like I'm good at recovery in front of everybody. I need to look like I'm being an excellent example of recovery, and I need to look like I'm great at it. And that's like a totally different struggle than like, oh, I really want to use drugs right now. But it's still like a struggle that I'm fighting against, that I feel like is like my teachings are older than the world. I feel like that's part of like a worldly distraction that comes against me in my recovery.
It's just another shade of that ego, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Kate. That's a really good point.
Thanks, Kate.
You do have to look good. You do have to look like you know what you're doing because you're in the field.
Right.
But you know what? I would say being vulnerable about it would be very helpful to other addicts too. That it's just, you're not perfect at it.
For me, I have found that when I get into that pride and ego with something like that, I usually get a situation that knocks me down a notch or two.
That's karma, right, buddy?
Yeah, unfortunately, that karma can be a bitch.
Restoring the balance.
Yes.
Just a quick question. I'm not in the online group anymore. How easy was it for the people who relapsed to basically, I guess, come out? Because I found when I was in AA and I had a sponsor and I started, smoking weed and stuff like that, I didn't want to tell my sponsor, and you felt almost in the meeting that, in the meetings you couldn't you didn't want to admit to it because of this feeling of being judged, or what's the group going to think? So I guess just how, and I'm not saying we're a bunch of judgmental people. That's not what I mean at all. It's just a perception. One feels almost humiliated and so on. Was that the case in this case, or was it kind of just very natural and saying, look, guys, I messed up? And
I think Jan, what's nice about the group is that I think we've proven ourselves that we are non-judgmental.
Yeah, sorry, this wasn't a criticism or anything like that. It's just a natural human reaction of feeling really,
And we only know about the ones who do speak up. I mean, we don't know. I mean, a lot of times, I wonder about the ones that leave the group, and I know a couple offhand that have left the group, and I found out later they left because they relapsed.
Yeah.
So
I'm a chronic relapser. I'll admit I love edibles, and but last time it's like, you know what? When I was in AA, it would be embarrassing and humiliating, even though nobody was judgmental, but I was. Till I learned that it's to have some self-compassion, and that I use it as self-soothing and things like that. And I started to understand why I relapse, and that also admitting my relapse can hopefully help somebody else who's relapsing. So whether people are in this particular online community, nobody seems to be judgmental, but you know what? I don't care if they are. I don't judge other people if they relapse. I don't care if somebody judges me about it. I just, I'm not going to a crack den. I'm just eating some pot. So I'm trying not to judge myself. I think that's part of it, is when we judge ourselves about relapsing, we think everybody else is judging us, when that's not always, especially in this particular group, it's not the case at all.
Yeah, and I think it's like with everything else. What I'm thinking you're thinking about me is probably not right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it shows the humanity of it all, and we're all just humans, and we're all just trying. And whether, I guess, you're 40 years sober or whether you're 8 months sober,
or one day,
it's cunning and baffling, and it's absolutely. But yeah, you build this image up of certain people, being almost a kind of a yogi kind of status, and yeah, you're absolutely right. And we're all just people, and it's a human process. It's our humanity, and we have feet of clay. You have to work at it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been sober 11 years, and I've spout all this spiritual BS, but for 6 years, man, I was back and forth. I mean, 6 years. And it's hard when someone's been sober for this long to think they really did that, to put them in that place. But many of us did that. We were, for whatever period of time, we relapsed, and, it wasn't all fun and games, and, we're all on a winning streak, so we're going to get into recovery. Woohoo! What's next?
And that's why I like being around the newcomers.
Yeah,
because they remind me of how it was. And if I don't just want to sit around. No offense, Buddy, but I don't want to sit around with Buddy and everybody else has got all this sobriety. I mean, that's all right. I mean, I don't mind it, but I like it when when the newcomers come in and but I don't like to see them struggle. But I learn more from them than I do from
the struggle's part of the process, Paul. It's just part of it, And I tell newcomers to just keep doing what's working for you and ignore what's not working. If you're drinking or using, it's not a positive to be using or drinking, but for me, I had to just ignore my drinking and keep doing the things that was working. And those things were like a tree growing that could eventually support me, and so that was my approach. Like turning the light on, like we talked about last week, get more light in there. Rob?
So my sobriety is based on what I want for me. It's the one time I get to be selfish. I'm going to be confident in saying this. If my sobriety is based on what other people expect of me and my worth is based on their perception of me, I'm screwed. So this whole thing for me is I look back and go, that wasn't good for me. Now, when I'm doing things that are good for me, turns out I'm being a better human and things are better for my wife and my kids and those people that I interact with. So as I'm becoming better. So my take on it, because I'm watching a lot of train wrecks in another group I'm in, and I empathize with them and I feel for them, and I'm almost crying talking about it. But at the end of the day, this is about me, and I'm going to stay sober because this is better. This is better for me 8 months in. That's it.
You know, Rob, you're living a paradox too, really, because you're helped by helping someone else. So granted, you're doing what's best for you, but the way you do what's best for you is doing for someone else. So the whole thing is paradoxical in every way. I thought I saw another hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like Paul's ready to go to a meeting.
No, he's not, Craig. He won't go.
Hey.
I've tried to get him to go. He'd love it. You know?
Hey,
Plenty of newcomers there. Plenty of newcomers there, Paul.
hey, you know what? These meetings work just fine for me. And this is a meeting, Craig, whether you like to admit it or not.
I'm going to go on record, and this will be recorded, okay? Once Paul actually goes to a meeting, he's going to come back, and he's going to say, oh, man, I loved it. It was wonderful. And he's going to be a staple at the local clubhouse. I can see it already.
I might have to go to one just so I can come back and say I hated it. Couldn't stand it. You're wrong, buddy.
Yeah. Please do, Paul. Please prove me wrong.
Hey, I'm just doing what works for me, okay?
That's it. There's no judgment. You know, I had a sponsee one time that wouldn't go to meetings. I wanted him to go to meetings, but he wanted to go to something else. And I said, well, okay, I didn't push him. Shane's his name. I didn't push him.
Shane R?
Yeah, Shane R. Yeah, exactly. I didn't push him. And I just let him figure it out. And eventually, it wasn't long after, someone came to him that wanted to get sober, and he started taking him to meetings. And now, and little did I know, he has a meeting around the corner from his house, like, less than 60 seconds from his house. And I just had to let him figure that out for himself. So, you know, it's what it is. Give folks room and they'll do that, you know?
You know what? I did come close, buddy. About a year ago, we had somebody in the group who I met here locally, and she was afraid to go to a meeting, and I offered to go with her, and she never followed up on it. I was going to go with her, but
I just know who goes, Paul, and I think you would enjoy it. That's all. Shane, you got something to share today, sir? You going to unmute? Yeah, there you go.
I apologize for being late. Number one, this is a great group. Really cool to jump in and check it out. Paul, I thought you were an old school 12-stepper, man. I thought you've been in meetings for years. That's the first thing I caught. So I got to agree with Buddy, man. I think you should check it out. I think you'd dig it. But
no, I'm going to keep my streak alive. Never been to one yet.
No, I wasn't really planning on saying much today. Just planning on sitting in and checking it out. I think this is a great group. A lot of good stuff today that I've heard already. I think that's one of the biggest things is just being open, just showing up. Even though I was a bit late today, I did that debate of like, I'll just try to catch it next week, you know, because I'm late. But I'm glad that I just jumped in anyways. You know, even with that doubt and even the judgment thing. I don't want to be the late guy. I'm the late guy, but I'm here. You know what I mean? I kind of just showed up and I heard some good things today. So yeah, no, I just appreciate being able to hop in today and check it out. Thank you guys.
Sure, man.
We don't mind being late. That doesn't bother anybody. It's not like you're moving chairs around and making lots of noise. You know, you just got to pop in. It's not a big deal.
Marla, do you have any quotes you want to throw in?
Oh my goodness.
Out of the Wayne Dyer?
You know, I just closed it out because it's 9 o'clock. So
I'm gonna read just a couple of real quick ones that I really like. It'll take less than 60 seconds. Surrender and allow the life-sustaining Tao energy to guide you. Stop fighting. Eschew violent thoughts and deeds and give up trying to control others in the world. Stay humble. Don't interfere. Respect your creative genius as well as that of others. And above all, return to your invisible source and shed your troublesome ego while you're still alive and incarnated as one of the 10,000 things. If you do all this, you'll naturally live a long life in joyful, non-judgmental peace. Guys, any closing thoughts? Everyone good?
do the Tao now.
Do the Tao now. Y'all have a great week. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. For more information about the SRC, go to theshairpodcast.com. Shair is spelled S-H-A-I-R, and look for the Shair Recovery Community link. When you join the SRC, you will be able to participate in this meeting and many more live, plus access to a video library of past meetings and many more benefits for being a part of this growing community. Thanks again for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.